Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, and welcome to today's show of The Purest Way. I'm Angela Webster, your resident chef, and today I will be demonstrating coconut kefir pudding. I have all of the ingredients and equipment and tools that you will need laid out right here. We've got 2 young Thai coconuts. They are nice and white. They don't have any funny moldy spots on the bottom of them. And they're nice and heavy, so I know they're full of water. Okay, I've got kefir starter from Donna Gates, which is from the Body Ecology, and we love Donna Gates. She is fabulous. Okay. We've got a jar that is sealable and a towel. We have a cleaver. You do not want to do this with a chef's knife because it very well may break. I did break one time. We've got this wonderful avocado utensil. However, I use it as a coconut meat scraper. We've got a little net for straining, a wooden spoon for stirring, 2 large containers for the coconut water, and a bowl for the meat. And our handy Vitamix 5200 blender. Rockstar. Okay. So, first thing that we want to do is open up the coconuts. Now, I've seen people do this all number of ways. What I like to do is lay the coconut on its side and cut the husk off, kind of at an angle. And you'll see, once you get it cut off, it's kind of a flat brown surface underneath. Kind of like that, okay? So I'm just gonna do the other one really quickly, and then I'll show you how to go from there with it. Okay. And you do need some amount of arm strength to do this. So ladies, this would be a good time to ask your guys to come over and demonstrate some of their manlyhood for the sake of his stomach. Okay, so now here's the fun part. For this part, you're going to need to use this corner of the cleaver. And what you're going to want to do is drive it in so that you get 4 or 5 spots around the top, like so. Okay, or 6 or 7 or however many it takes. And then this will kind of just pop right off like that. So as we can see, the flesh of the coconut is a nice white color. Okay, there's no pink or mold, and it's a nice solid feel. So we know that it's a good coconut, okay? So I'm gonna pour this water right into here for now. All right. Next contestant. Whoops. And this is a great idea for getting out stress ever. You know, not to take your stress out on the poor coconut, but just saying. You know, how often do you get to drive a knife into something like that? Okay. Again, we have a nice coconut. And so 2 coconuts yields approximately, well, it actually varies. These 2 coconuts gave us about 2 1/4 cups of water. So we've got some pieces and what have you in here. I'm gonna strain that just so we can kind of keep the coconut shell out of it. And now what I'm gonna do is take this and go inside the coconut and scrape out the meat. I find this to be relatively effortless. Some people think it's challenging until they get the hang of it, and again, some people may not be strong enough to do that. It just depends. So look at that beautiful, yummy coconut meat. Coconuts are super, super good for you. They are just packed full of vitamins and nutrients and minerals, and they're so good for your body inside and out. Pretty much anything you could ever need to work on healing yourself with, you can do with a coconut. Pretty much. You can check out different various coconut research websites to find out the details and the specifics of all the things that they're good for. And you will just be amazed. Not to mention they taste good, and the water is isotonic. So it's wonderful for refreshing yourself, energizing yourself. It's great for hydrating yourself. It's just all kinds of rock star right here. And it's vegan, it's raw, you know, everybody loves it. Hopefully you're not allergic to it. Okay. So, I like to get it all out of there. I kind of do things in a traditional way a little bit because I grew up around my grandmother while she was in the kitchen, and so we try to use everything and do everything correctly, no microwaves or things like that, and very traditional or old-fashioned methods of preparing food. And it's fun, you know, because you get to taste everything. All right. Get the other guy here. Okay. So once you get all the coconut meat scraped out, depending on whether or not you feel like any of it may have got some of these little shells in it, you can rinse it off under filtered water. Or if you don't need to, you can just put it right into the Vitamix blender, because that's where it's going to go. Or you can put some in your mouth and do a little R&D, make sure that it's good, which is always fun too. As a matter of fact, R&D is probably my favorite part of cooking, baking, and experimenting in the kitchen. So, I guess now would be a good time to tell you that anytime you start any project in the kitchen, you want to check in first and make sure that you have love in your heart, a smile on your face, and tons of fun, because that energy is going to transfer right into whatever it is that you're creating. And that's probably a good philosophy for any creative endeavor that you undertake. See how sometimes the shell gets stuck on that coconut meat? So I'm going to pull it off for now, but I probably will give everything one little rinse under the filtered water before I put it into the Vitamix, just to make sure that we don't get any crunchies in there. So, the great thing about coconut kefir yogurt is that for those of you who have a sensitivity to dairy, this is the alternative for yogurt. I remember when I first decided to go gluten-free and dairy-free, I thought, well, how does cheesecake and yogurt fit into that? And I had never found anything to substitute the yogurt until I came upon this. So it's pretty exciting in the world of those of us who don't consume dairy any longer, because we get to still have that creamy, cold, rich yogurt in the morning, but it doesn't have dairy, and it is so good for you. Okay, got them pretty cleaned out inside. Maybe a little bit more. All right. Okay, so they're pretty well cleaned out and scraped out on the inside, if you can see that. So I'm going to toss them. Get rid of my shells. And I'm going to scrape this off too. Yay! All right, we're gonna pause for a brief moment so that my camera crew can come out and taste the coconut water and the coconut meat, and I suggest that you share yours too. All right.
Let's see, the only thing I would change...
This guy over. All right. And we're back. A little bit more well hydrated. Definitely have some yummy goodness in our tummies. So I'm just gonna finger through this bowl here and scope out the scene. Yeah, I've done this once or twice, so I'm pretty good at not getting any shell in there. But especially when you first start out, you may want to just rinse it. Another thing is that if you get this brown skin on the coconut from the inside of the coconut shell, that's fine and you can eat that and it's not bad for you, it's good for you, as long as it's not the hard shell, okay? So the next step in our fun little process is to put all the meat inside the Vitamix blender. Okay. Here we go. And you can put as much or as little coconut water as you'd like in there. I like my coconut kefir to be a yogurt consistency. Some people prefer it to be more liquidy, so they might put all of the coconut water in. I've already taken some of the coconut water out so that we could taste test it. So I'm gonna start out by putting, there's probably about a cup left in here. That'll probably be enough, more than enough. I still have a little bit left in here, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on and blend it up and see what the consistency is like. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. So right now, it's pretty much like yogurt. That's perfect. So I'm not going to add any more water. So from this point, where we'll go with it is, whoops, right over here into this sealable jar. And I tend to get my hands dirty a little bit with this one because it's fun. You'll see what I mean by that in just 1 second. So most of it comes out, all right, without a problem. A lot of it doesn't. And I like to get all of it because this is my yogurt for the you know, week or whatever. So I actually use my hand to get all of it out because I don't want to waste any of it, because to me this is like liquid gold. All right. Some people might use a spatula, but that's just not as much fun. All right. Of course, I'm being very careful when sticking my hands in the bottom of this blender. Kids, do not try this at home. I wouldn't recommend young children using a blender without being under the supervision of an adult. Okay. So if you've never had homemade kefir before, it might taste new to you right at first. The first time I had it, I wasn't crazy about it, and it was probably because it was more liquidy, and it was just, you know, it just wasn't the way that I like it. The second time I had it, I made it thicker, and I was like, whoa, this is the deal. Okay. Cool. So I will give a little rinse here. It would be more fun to lick this off. Okay. And I'm going to wash my hands. It's a great idea to wash your hands frequently while working with food. And I highly recommend getting a soap that is all natural, like Dr. Bronner's hand soap or something like that, and keeping it in your kitchen or even in your bathrooms. Especially when you work with food and you wash your hands a lot. If you use those other soaps, they can dry out your skin and be very damaging to the cells on your hands. Okay, so we've got it all here in the jar. And this is the part where we open up the kefir package. So one of these packages is really cool. You can open up one of these packages, and all you do is cut it open, pour it in, and stir it up well with a spoon. So what's great about this is that you can actually, after you've done it, you poured your fresh kefir package in, the next time that you go to make your coconut kefir, save about 8 tablespoons of the coconut kefir, and that will be your starter, not a whole nother package. And you can do that 7 times. So this will be the first time. So we can use this same kefir as the base 6 more times. I hope that makes sense to everybody. If it doesn't, you can ask me questions on my blog or send me a tweet on Twitter, and I'll be able to answer your questions more specifically or clearly. So I'm going to give this a nice stir. Make sure that it's very thoroughly stirred. And it makes me happy because it's so delicious looking. Very rich and creamy. And my body knows how good it is for me. My mind knows how good it is for me. And my tummy sure does now. Okay. So now that it's got a good stir, that's cool. I'm going to save this for my camera guy so he can taste it. So from this point, all you do is you cover it with a towel. And I'm going to leave it covered with a towel for 7 to 10 hours. So right now it's about 3:36. So anytime after 10:36 into 1:36 in the morning, I can take off this towel, seal the jar like so, and put it right in the fridge, wherever it will fit, and leave it there for 2 days. So I'll leave it there. I'm going to take the towel off tonight. And once I take the towel off, I'll put it in the fridge. I'll seal it and I'll put it in the fridge. And I'll leave it there. Tonight is Thursday night, so I'll leave it there until Saturday night. So it'll be perfect for breakfast on Sunday morning. And that's how you make it. Enjoy. Okay.
That was great.
I wasn't nervous at all. I didn't forget to say like a whole bunch of things.
Oh, I couldn't tell.
Okay, good.
No, that was really good.
Thanks. Oh, excuse me. Where are my manners? And I've also got a spinner and a large bowl. Now, if you want to be more careful about washing your produce, you can actually do your own little solution of vinegar and water for washing your produce. Some people are concerned about using organic produce, you know, just to make sure that it's clean and it doesn't have any bugs or anything else like that. So that's an excellent way to clean off any extra bacteria if you want to be extra precautious about it. Just make a little bath in, say, a large bowl of filtered water and some raw apple cider vinegar, and you're good to go. Or you could even use white distilled vinegar. So these chips are awesome because, first of all, they taste great and they're really good for you, and they're a great alternative if you have kids, or you know, your husband or your family or you yourself like to munch on something crunchy and salty. These are awesome because they're gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, sugar-free, GMO-free. These are actually a raw recipe, which I will use the dehydrator for, the Excalibur dehydrator. I strongly recommend having a dehydrator to make kale chips. I know a lot of people who have tried to do it in the oven and put their oven down to whatever the lowest setting is that it will go. That is not the same thing. To make something raw, it has to be 118 degrees or less. Everything above that, then the live enzymes in the food become, you know, potentially damaged. And the other thing about doing it in the oven is that it really doesn't get that same flavor and crispness and have the same effect on the kale as an actual dehydrator does. So I do recommend having a dehydrator for this. We use the Excalibur here in this house, and it's the best. It's baller status. But if you have any dehydrator at all, I'm sure that it will do the job just as well. So the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. So I'm doubling that, so I need 4. So I'm going to go ahead and just juice this entire lemon. I got my first citrus juicer when I was like 13, and I needed to make a cake that called for lemon juice. And even at that age, I refused to buy processed little plastic lemons that had some mystery juice inside of them claiming to be from a lemon. I was like, yeah, okay, right. And so I went out and bought one, and my mom was like, what are you doing? And I said, well, you know, it calls for lemon juice. And she went into the fridge and pulled out the little plastic yellow lemon. And I was like, Mom, I am not using that, you know. So it definitely started at a young age with me. God bless my mother. Okay, so I've got some backup lemons here just in case we need more. That's probably gonna be enough. And if we need more, we've got it, okay? So there's that. Now, for the cashews, there's 2 ways you can do this, and I'll explain to you both. One way is you simply cut them open, the raw organic cashews, and you put them in the Vitamix blender. I hope that no one is confused right now. So you definitely need a Vitamix blender and an Excalibur dehydrator to do this. 2 of the staple items for any raw cuisine. Yeah. Or the other way, what you could do is you could soak these and dehydrate them. The reason people do that is because all nuts have a protective shell around them that keeps the enzymes, the live enzymes inside, and protects them. So in order to break through that shell and have better digestion, you soak them in water, and that breaks that down. Cashews can be soaked for 1 to 2 hours, and that's sufficient. Or you could soak them overnight depending on what you're using them for. If I were going to soak the cashews, I would soak them for probably 2 hours and then put them in a dehydrator for 24 hours or until they were the desired crispness again. The reason people dehydrate nuts after they soak them is because they want that crunchiness to the nut, but they want it to be easy to digest and have that protective coating taken away. Okay? So the reason that it's okay not to do it sometimes is because if you're going to be blending up the cashew or whatever nut it is, the school of thought is that that will crush through that coating and that the nut will be in such a fine particle that it will have thereby, you know, removed the need to soak it to break through that casing, if that makes sense to you. So I personally think it's just a good idea to soak and dehydrate all of your nuts, and I generally do it as a rule of thumb. Today we didn't, but I will show you how to dehydrate nuts and all of that on another show. So the recipe calls for 1 1/4 cups. So this is 1 1/2 cups and we're doubling the recipe. So into my little cauldron, okay, and one and a half. So I always do a little bit extra anyway, so I'm just gonna guess. We don't mind having it really cheesy tasting. The nuts is what gives it its thick, creamy, cheesy consistency, okay? Now I could have measured that out if I was gonna be super particular about it, but I'm not, only because I've made this a whole bunch of times and it's okay, and it's not quite like baking where you have to be uber particular about every little measurement. So there's a lot of freedom in it, which we love. We love freedom. Okay. So the recipe calls for 1/4 of a large onion chopped. So double that would be about 1/2 of an onion. So I'm going to do 1/2 of this onion. We'll save the other 1/2. And we'll see if I break down in tears over this one. So I actually did this recipe at one of the classes, one of the cooking classes I taught, and the people liked the cheese sauce so much that they just dipped everything else that the class was in it, like as if it were ranch dressing or something. So it's really delicious, okay? You don't actually have to chop the onion. I just think it's fun and I like to play with the food. I mean, obviously the Vitamix is like gonna disintegrate the onion or turn it into fine onion paste, but I like to play with the food and I like to put all my energy into the food, so I do it. And you can do whatever feels right or fun or easy for you. Okay. Let's see here. The recipe calls for 1/2 of a bell pepper. I'm going to do a little bit more than a whole one, just because I can. The bell pepper gives it great flavor, and it also gives it that yellowish color that it will have when it's finished, which you'll see. And when you check out my blog for the recipe, or if you're already at my blog watching this video, you will see links to show you different research websites that'll talk about the health benefits of all the different fruits and vegetables that I use for my recipes. Ooh, it smells so good. So I'm removing all of the seeds and the top, obviously. I recommend getting all of your produce whole and cutting it up yourself, because there is a school of thought about fresh food that once you cut open a piece of produce, be it fruit or vegetable, it then has a window of time that it is, you get the most out of it. And I just think it's better that you're the one that's cutting it and putting that energy into it and handling it. So that's just my own personal belief system. Again, you may do as you choose. Plus, it ensures the freshness of the ingredients. So it's really up to you. Okay. So we're getting jiggy with it. We're going a little outside of the box today, which I encourage you to do all the time. We love it. And I also encourage you to send me in your feedback on the recipes and any ideas or tips or suggestions. We love collaborating here. So any ideas are loved and welcomed. Okay. So it calls for a 1/4 cup filtered water. So I'm going to put a 1/2 cup of water in here. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to actually get this started. Let's do the lemon juice too to give it a little bit more moisture. Maybe it'll help it go. So 4 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have some left over, and I'm going to put it in extra. Okay. All right. So.
Can we start it over here?
Yes, we can. Of course we can. I can do that, you know. Like this? Or
that's fine. Yeah,
this is fine?
Yeah.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Cool. Rocks are. Okay. Okay. So, ready? Here we go. Sounds like the kale cheese sauce monster. Anyways, so you can see it's got this really thick orangish consistency. Okay, we've got more space to work with in there now. So garlic, we love garlic. Garlic is so good for you. It's calling for 3 cloves, so we're gonna do 6. Never scared of garlic. Some people, may or may not like garlic. I cook for a lady who is not a fan of it, but when she has these kale chips, she doesn't even know that it's in there. And I will tell you that the cheese sauce, it's a lot more excited tasting on your tongue like this than after it comes out of the dehydrator. So the flavor calms down a little bit in the dehydrator. And you'll see what I'm talking about, as you do this for yourself. And of course, for this recipe, you can pretty much, there's a lot of freedom, like I said, especially with raw stuff. You could use macadamia nuts if you wanted to, or pine nuts. You could really use any nut you wanted to make the cheese. You could use walnuts, which are higher in omega-3s than the other nuts. So we love walnuts. We love all the nuts. We love all of them. So 3, 6, yeah, 3, 6, beautiful. Okay. Woo! All right, so we got the garlic here. It's one of my favorite ingredients ever. Maybe it's because I'm Italian, or maybe it's just because I have good taste. I don't know. I like to use it with onion a lot to substitute having high salt content in the meals. So garlic and onion is a good way to supplement something that calls for a lot of salt if you are concerned about your sodium intake. Okay, Rockstar. And if you're ever bored and you need to give yourself a nice easy thrill, just take a bite of one of these. Well, that'll get you going real quick, promise. Okay, so next comes the salt, and it calls for 1½ teaspoons, so we're gonna do 3. This salt is so good. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Right. And cumin, 1 teaspoon, so we'll do 2. This gives them a really nice flavor. It also helps to deepen the flavors of the other ingredients. Yes. When I was little, I used to think there was a sweaty man in the house anytime my mom cooked with cumin. Oh, the imagination of a child. It's great. All right. Now, I also use onion powder. You might wonder why I use onion powder and chopped onion, and it's just because I can do that. It calls for 2 teaspoons, so we're gonna do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, all right. We're big fans of Sesame Street, in case you couldn't tell. And let's see here. I think all that's left is the tahini. All right, sweet. So it calls for 1 teaspoon of raw tahini, so we'll go ahead and do 2. Now, the option on this recipe is if you want to kick it up a notch, really get this party started, you could add some cayenne pepper, or you could add some fresh hot peppers, fresh organic hot peppers, you know, and just de-seed them. Or if you're like super saucy, you could just put the seeds in too, okay? But that's up to you, okay? And then just, you know, put them right in here and get this party started. I like spicy foods myself, but I'm generally preparing food in this house for people who can't handle it or can't have pepper. So we're gonna do it without it for now. But if you like spicy food, this would be a great recipe to get creative with, okay? I'm just gonna wash my hands. All right, so now that we've got all of our spices and the sauce, we're gonna get this party started. Take it down a few notches. So one of the things that you'll notice the more you watch my show is that I'm really big on thoroughly mixing things, and that's probably something I picked up from my grandmother, because when I was very young, about 2, I started, you know, sitting in the kitchen with her, propped up like this over the stove, checking out what was going on and always watching her, and she was really big on thoroughly mixing things so that everything had a very even flavor to it. Okay. So as we pay our homage to the Vitamix blender, because I don't know any other blender that could handle this kind of stuff that well, we have our cheese sauce. And this would be a great time for me and my crew to taste it out and see how it's coming along, and we'll be right back after that. Going. She'll take all of that vegetable extra, and she'll put it in a giant pot with some water and cook it for like 3 hours or whatever, and that's her vegetable stock. So if you aren't composting, that is a great way to get some use out of all your vegetable ends and pieces and wrappings and what have you, okay? And we love that because we love to use every part of the food, okay? Call me old-fashioned, but you know, gotta represent for my grandma. Okay, so we got all this goodness going on here, and it'll be filled up pretty quickly, okay. All right, cool. So I can usually get one whole batch of kale, one bunch of kale into one of these big bowls. And then I'm gonna wash it, and then I'm gonna spin it, and then I'm gonna put some cheese sauce on it. It's gonna get serious in here real quick. All right. So moms at home who are watching, this is a great thing to do with your kids. It's fun, it's easy. It gets them comfortable with, you know, touching the food and playing with it, and it's always a good opportunity to spend time with your kids in an open, fun environment where you can talk to them about why this is good for you, and, you know, even have them taste a little bit of it raw. You can eat it raw too. So yeah. Let me get this going. I'm going to get that in some water, and then I'm going to spin it. And in the meantime, I'm going to pull out 5 trays for my dehydrator. Can we stop for a second? A bit left in here in case, you know, one batch seems like it needs more or less than the other. So we'll just start with this, see what happens, and then we'll take it from there. So this is really important to mix thoroughly. The more thoroughly you mix these chips, this kale, and saturate it in this nut cheese sauce, the better off you're gonna be when it comes time to take a bite out of it, okay? I noticed the first few times that I ever made these kale chips, I would hunt through and find the ones that were more soaked and covered in the cheese sauce. So then I just decided that I would get really good at making sure there was lots of cheese sauce and that it was really well mixed, okay? So you just get down in there and just do it, you know, just get to town. First way. Today, we're going to revisit our kale chips, which have been in the dehydrator for 24 hours. And we're going to pull them out, see what they look like, and give them a taste. Good? Okay.
Ready when you are.
Okay. Welcome back. I'm Angela Webster, and you're watching The Purest Way, where cooking starts here. Today we are going to come back to our kale chips, which have been in the dehydrator for 24 hours. So we're going to open it up, see what they look like, and give them a taste test. Just to remind you, we've been dehydrating them at 115 degrees for the last 24 hours. And here they are. Oh my. You see how they've gotten very, very crispy like a chip. And you can see that nice coating of nut cheese sauce we've got on them. And I'll give them a little taste for you. That is just all kinds of crazy good. So you'll notice when you taste these, if you've tasted the cheese sauce before you put it in the dehydrator, that the flavor has calmed down a lot. You can still taste the cashews and the red bell pepper and the onion and the garlic and the cumin and the salt and everything that we put in there. It's just not as excited. It's super delicious, and we have just successfully made our kale chips, which can be eaten in place of potato chips, Doritos, popcorn, anything like that. And I will warn you right now, anybody who tries these is going to want more. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed everything, and have fun making this at home.